So, what happens when a band has these incredible songs, but there's no big record deal? No giant corporation behind them? How do they even get their music to people like you and me? Well, let's get into it, because the answer? It's not just a strategy. It's a whole genre of music.
And that genre is indie rock. You've probably heard the term, right? Indie is just shorthand for independent, and that's really the key to the whole thing. It's all about making music exactly how you want to, without needing a big corporate record label to give you the green light, or the cash. Honestly, it's as much a mindset as it is a style of music.
Okay, so to really understand what indie is all about, we've got to go back to where it all started. It really boils down to this one super important idea: having total creative control.
All right, picture this. It's the 1980s. Coming out of the whole punk rock scene in the UK and the US, you had all these artists who were just fed up. They were tired of music executives in suits telling them to change a lyric here or make a song sound more commercial. So you know what they did? They decided to do it all themselves. They started recording in tiny studios, sometimes even in their basements or living rooms, just to get this really raw, authentic sound. And that right there was the beginning of a massive global movement.
And this idea of handling everything yourself, it wasn't just about saving a buck. No, it became this core philosophy, a kind of rebellion, really. We call it do-it-yourself, or DIY. And it's all about taking charge of your own art.
So what does that actually mean in practice? Well, think of it like this. An indie band isn't just writing and recording the music. Oh no, they're also the graphic designer for the album art. They're the booking agent getting their own gigs. They're the ones driving the beat-up van across the country and selling their own merch that they probably printed themselves. Seriously, they're the CEO, the artist, and the roadie all rolled into one.
And you know what all that hard work does? It creates this incredibly genuine, tight-knit connection between the musicians and their fans. When you're a fan, you know that the music, the t-shirt, the show, it's all coming straight from the artists themselves. There's no corporate middleman. It's just real.
Okay, so we've got the whole philosophy down. But what about the music? Like, what actually makes an indie rock song sound, well, indie? Let's take a look at the typical toolkit. First off, guitars are almost always the star of the show, and the vibe is usually melodic, but it's definitely not meant to sound super slick and perfect. Actually, it's the total opposite. The goal is to capture a feeling, you know, that raw emotion. Vocals might go from a quiet whisper to a full-on shout in the same song. And the lyrics? They tend to be really honest and personal, like pages ripped from a diary. The big takeaway here is that it's all about the emotion, not about being a technically perfect player. Now, you're going to hear the phrase distorted guitar tones thrown around a lot. So what in the world does that mean? Okay, imagine a really clean, clear electric guitar sound. Got it? Now, imagine you're adding this fuzzy, gritty, kind of crunchy layer on top. That's distortion. It just makes the guitar sound bigger, heavier, and gives the song this awesome texture and energy. It is a cornerstone of the indie rock sound. But here's the thing. Indie rock was never just about the music coming out of the speakers. It's a whole culture, an entire ecosystem, built by people who were passionate about this stuff. Let's see how all the different pieces of that community fit together.
Right at the heart of this whole network are the indie record labels. See, a major label is usually hunting for the next massive, stadium-filling pop hit. But indie labels, they're more like curators at an art gallery. They focus on a specific sound or artistic vision, and most importantly, they give their artists the freedom to be themselves, to experiment, and to grow.
So, before everyone had Spotify and TikTok, how did anybody even discover these bands? The answer, and this is so cool, was college radio. You had these student-run stations where the DJs could play literally whatever they wanted, so they became the champions for all this unique underground music that you'd never ever hear on mainstream radio. You could say they were the original music influencers.
And indie rock wasn't just happening everywhere at once. It really grew out of specific local scenes. Think about cities like Manchester in the UK or Seattle over in the US. They became these creative hotspots. Bands would all know each other, they'd influence each other's sound, play shows at the same small clubs. They built a genuine community right from the ground up.
The live shows are a completely different world too. An indie show isn't happening in some giant soulless stadium. No, it's about being crammed into a small club, or maybe even a basement, where the band is so close you can practically feel the sweat and energy coming off the stage. That barrier between the band and the crowd just disappears. It becomes this really intense, shared experience for everyone in the room.
So you might think a genre that started out in basements and college radio stations would stay pretty niche, right? Wrong. The impact of indie rock has been absolutely massive.
It didn't just carve out its own space, it ended up changing the entire music industry.
I mean, just look at the music landscape today. So many of the biggest pop stars are using production tricks and sounds that were born in the indie scene. They're writing lyrics that are more personal and authentic. And how do they market themselves? By connecting directly with fans online. That's just a 21st century version of that old DIY playbook. The ideas that started on the fringes, they went totally mainstream.
And it's not just an American or British thing anymore, not by a long shot. The internet blew the doors wide open. Now, indie rock is a truly global phenomenon. You can find these amazing bands from Japan, Brazil, Sweden, you name it, all putting their own unique cultural spin on the sound. They're creating music that's completely their own and sharing it with the entire planet.
And even though the sound of indie rock has changed and evolved so much over the years, its core DNA, that stayed exactly the same. It always comes back to those three key values: creativity, authenticity, and of course, independence. At the end of the day, it's about having the freedom to create exactly the art you want to create, no compromises.
Which kind of brings us to a big question for today. In a world where any artist can record a song in their bedroom, upload it to Spotify, and build a following on social media, what does it even mean to be indie anymore? Is it just another label for a certain style of music? Or is that original spirit of fierce independence actually more crucial now than it has ever been? Definitely something to chew on.